From today, I will start explaining Polythene, a disaster. Rakesh, a student of 5th standard, visited his uncle's house with his parents and found a heap of dirt in polythene bags stinking nearby the house. And Rakesh is studying in 5th standard and he happens to visit his uncle's house, and there he found a heap of dirt in polythene bags. He found a lot of polythene bags, a pile of polythene bags, and the polythene and inside the polythene bags had accumulated dirt, which created a very bad smell outside the house, nearby the house. Now the point here is that polythene does not stink ordinarily. It's the dirt inside the polythene bags that stinks. So there was a pile of polythene bags, and each polythene bag and the polythene bags have dirt inside them, and that created the stinking smell. That was the source of stink. We don't say stinking smell because stink itself means a bad smell. I I made a mistake there by saying stinking smell. So we just have to say stink, which means a very bad smell. Rakesh and his parents covered their mouths with their handkerchiefs and rushed into the house. And protected themselves from the stink because it's unbearable, because it's very bad smell, and you cannot smell it for a long time. So they had to cover their mouths, and they rushed into the house. They moved into the house quickly because of the stink. Rakesh's uncle and his family warmly welcomed them, and they were welcomed very happily, delightfully. Rakesh, uncle, why is there so much of stink outside the house? And Rakesh questions his uncle about the stink outside their house. Rakesh's uncle replies, "My dear son, it's because of the dirt in the polythene bags." And Rakesh's uncle replies, "It's because of the dirt that's present inside the polythene bags." Rakesh, what's polythene? And Rakesh says, "What's polythene then? If it's the dirt inside the polythene bags." Now, dirt is very simple. It's a very common thing, but Rakesh did not know about the polythene, so he said to his uncle, "What's polythene?" And his uncle replies, "It's a tough, light, flexible, synthetic resin made by polymerizing ethylene, chiefly used for plastic bags, food containers, and other packaging." Now Rakesh's uncle explains it scientifically. Now how the polythene is prepared, because it's prepared out of a chemical reaction, and his uncle explains it and some of its properties. He says it's tough, it's hard, it can hold things, it has strength, it's light, and it's flexible, and it's mainly used for plastic bags, and that we see in the market ordinarily, but which are banned, but they are still being used because amid the ban, food containers means lays that we buy from the shops, and many other things come in polythene wrappings. Rakesh, who discovered it? Now Rakesh questions, now who discovered polythene? Who invented it? Rakesh's uncle, it was discovered by a German scientist, Hans von Pachmann. He had completely by accident, and Rakesh's uncle explains that the polythene was discovered in an accidentally. It was not intended. Made polythene, a waxy residue at the bottom of his test tube. Now this is the scientist, and his name is Hans von Pachmann, who created polythene, but accidentally. And here it's a waxy residue at the bottom of his, and he found a waxy residue. Residue is the remaining when some the thing, the substance which remains after a chemical process is over. Now it was the byproduct of the chemical process, the residue. When something is complete and the remaining is called the residue. Bottom of his test tube, and test tube is used in the chemical labs for the experiments. He had little idea of material significance, and he had very little idea of its significance, its importance, that it will that it was going to show in the upcoming time. He was he was not to know that the substance was an early form of what we now use in everyday life, and the scientist had totally no idea about that this polythene would be so widely spread, and it will be so widely used everywhere and in everyday life, that we normally every person uses polythene in everyday life, whether they buy stuff from the shop, or they buy stuff everywhere there is polythene. Rakesh, but uncle, why are there so many polythene bags? Now Rakesh says, why are there so many polythene bags? Why is it everywhere? Why is it used so commonly? Rakesh's father, my son, I will tell you the reasons for this. Now the Rakesh's father starts to explain. Until now it was his uncle. Now Rakesh's father steps into this conversation, and he says to Rakesh that I will explain this. Rohit, Rakesh's cousin. Uncle, I also want to know them. Now Rohit is the Rakesh's cousin, and he is now, speaking to Rakesh's father. This makes the Rakesh's father Rohit's uncle, and he says, "Uncle, I also want to know," and he is also curious to know about why is polythene everywhere. Rakesh's father, okay, dear, and he says, "Okay, my dear, but listen carefully, and I expect that after listening to me, you kids will stop using polythene bags, which we elders have so far failed to do." And Rakesh's father starts with the thing that, and he says to them that listen carefully, be give me your attention. And he expects them. He says that I expect, that I hope that you will not use polythene after you listen to me, what I am going to say, and which we have been failed to do. We have been failed to, you know, to 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 hit out this polythene, from the everyday life, but we could not. And I expect you to do so. In fact, you have to make a promise not to use polythene bags, and also encourage other kids in your schools and neighborhoods not to do so. And you have to promise me, and you have to assure me that you will not use polythene, and you will encourage others, and you will say this message to others not to use polythene, to your friends and to your neighbors, that don't use polythene. And Rakesh and Rohit reply, all right, we promise it, and they agreed, and they promised it that they will not use it, and they will encourage others to not to use it.